Good morning, I'm Neil Hutchings of Devon Bonsai Nursery, and this morning with Ed, my assistant, we're going to be repotting this large Deshojo maple, Acer palmatum Deshojo. And this tree was bought probably 7 or 8 years ago from Kent, from a private collection, and the tree was in quite a poor state at the time, and it's gradually been developing, and last year I had a look at the roots and decided to go another year before the repot. So today, for Extra Bonsai Society, I'm going to do a video of the repot of this tree. Okay, right, so first job is to cut the tree out of the pot. So we'll just cut the retaining wires. I'll give you that one out. Okay, there you go. Take it off the turntable first. Okay. Let's move it forward there. And then we will tilt the pot up and see what we've got underneath. Okay, so we've got some retaining wires for the mesh, so we'll just fold those in like so. Do you want to do the same your side? Yeah. And then we should be able to remove those wires. Okay. Wires. Remove those. Okay. So, quite possibly now we will be able to just lift the tree out of the pot. We may need to go around the edge, but we'll give it a go. So Ed, if you want to grab the pot, and we'll just try and lift him out. There we are.
Easy.
Okay, lovely. Okay. So, as you can see, there's plenty of roots around the edge. There's a few circling roots. It's ready for a repot, but it's you know, it's certainly not too pot bound. So next job really is to give the pot a bit of a clean. So I'm going to allow Ed to go and give it a clean off. Yeah. And then we'll start working on the tree. Okay, so next thing to do is to clean the pot and prepare it ready for putting the tree in. So Ed has given the pot a nice wash, so we're now ready to prepare it for the tree. So if you like, cut a couple of pieces of mesh, Ed, and to fit over the drainage holes. Okay. And then we'll secure the mesh with some wire. So we've got some 2mm wire here, because we've got quite big drainage holes, and a couple of pieces of wire. Okay, so we'll offer the wire up to the holes so we can measure them, and we'll make ourselves a pin to hold the mesh in. Okay, we'll make a slight adjustment there. There. We'll leave you to fit that one there. Okay. I'll make a second pin here. Now, many years ago now, I our ex-chairman at Exeter Bonsai Society, showed me how to put the drainage mesh in using a simple piece of wire like this. Instead of going and doing the old-fashioned style, which was like so. Okay, so you've probably all made these up, doing that, and then bringing it over and making your pin like so. But he said to me one day, if you make a straight pin, it'll hold the mesh just the same, and it'll save you a lot of time. So for the last 5 years or so, we've been making straight pins, and it saves quite a bit of time. Okay, so we've now secured our mesh in the bottom nice and tight. Next is a couple of retaining wires. So on this pot, as we've got 2 lots of wire holes, we won't put the retaining wires through the drainage holes. If we were going to put them through the drainage holes, we'd be measuring them up like so, so that when they went through against the edge of the pot. So when we tighten them, we're not going to pull our mesh and move it. But we've got some dedicated wire holes here, so we shall just use those. Again, what we need to do is just put the bend in at the point of the hole, okay, and then we'll thread them through. We've got retaining wires in situ, and now we'll just put a little bit of grit over the drainage holes. It's a very shallow pot, so that's plenty of drainage there, and then we'll start work on the tray.
Right.
Okay, so as you can see, if we have a look at the tray, if you can come in a bit closer and have a look at the buds. You can see the buds are just swelling nicely, which makes it the ideal time for us to do a repot. So we're now going to start combing the root ball out, and basically just carefully combing the soil from between the roots so that we don't damage the roots. We'll just cut the corners off.
Yeah.
Always speeds the process up if we can get us all and cut the corners off. Okay, so we'll just cut them off. This will just let us get into the root ball that little bit quicker, and as all these roots are going to be trimmed anyway, we just as well saw them off. Okay, and we'll just go on now combing out. And we're basically holding the chopstick lightly in the hand, so that if we come across a root, a strong root, the chopstick will bounce off rather than tearing the roots. And we're just working in a small area and gradually removing the soil, and then we'll work methodically around the tree until we've removed quite a bit of the soil. Okay, so we've now combed out the outer root ball, and we've found that further in there's quite a bit of compaction, and if we put our chopstick in here, you can see it's not going in very easily. So we've got to just work into this part and make sure that the water will flow through here after the repot. So we've got quite a bit more work to do here, and again around here you can see it's quite compacted, so we've got more work to do with that, and then we'll give a trim to the roots. Okay, so now it's just spraying the root ball so it doesn't dry out because we're working on it. As you can see, it's quite a fine fibrous root. It's had quite a few years in a pot, probably, well, may well be 30-40 years in a pot. So it has got a nice fine root system. We've now combed out a lot more, and you can see now we've got between the roots, and it's a lot better. The drainage should be a lot better. There's still a little more to do here. We'll also do a bit from the underside now. So if I tilt it up, Ed, you can start doing a bit of work on the underside. But I'll bring it over the edge of the table so we don't hit the branches. Okay, we can start working on the base of the tree now. And as we got further into the core, we found there's some old akadama, but also possibly some compost style soil right in the core, and it was very, very compacted. So we've spent quite a time clearing this out, and there's probably another hour's work to do on the root system before we get back into the pot. Okay, so we've picked out a lot of the soil, both from the bottom and in the top here now, and this should allow the water to penetrate much better through the root ball. And the next job now is to give the roots a bit of a trim. Okay. Any really thick roots like this we're going to trim well back. Anything that's finer we'll just trim around the edge. Okay, I think we're about ready now. Let's go back into the pot. The only other thing we need to do is a little bit cleaning of the base here. So we'll do that there now, and then we'll come back and put them into the pot. So we've given the Nibari a bit of a scrub, get rid of any of the algae and the moss, and we're not far off now. And then I'll do the main trunk and the branches, and then we'll be ready to put it in the pot. Okay, so we're now going to put a bit of soil into the pot, and we're using our professional bonsai mix with around 10% normal grade akadama, just for a bit more moisture retention, which we tend to do on our deciduous trees. And we're going to make a decent mound of soil in the middle of the pot before we place the tree on top. Okay, so the root ball's now ready to go in the pot. We've got our heap soil, so we can now sit that in the pot. And if Ed can hold the pot for us, we'll see how he fits. Okay, I'll give a little bit more trimming to some of these roots. And we'll see if we can nestle him on down again. Okay, so we've not cut masses of root off of the tree. It's quite a mature tree. If we cut too much root, we're likely to get very coarse growth. So if you can hold him there a bit longer, yeah, let's see if I can get him down. Okay, so we've got the tree in the pot, but I'm just having a look at the angle of it, and I think we're going back a little bit, and this root's a bit high, so we'll see if we can just change the angle slightly, bring the front down a bit, shuffle it down and into the pot, and see if we can get that down. Okay, and maybe a bit more. Okay, so we've got him in the pot now, and we'll put our toes across and see if we can tie him in. So we'll try a few of these, see where they're going to go. Okay, so we have one attachment point just there. Okay, now this one you can see is coming quite a way up the Nabari, so we've put a turning post in here. So what we're actually going to do is attach it just there. So the turning post is going to hold the wire out a bit further out, away from the main roots on the Nabari. Thank you, Ed. Just trim those up, and then we'll tighten the tree up. Okay, so we're just going to pull and twist, pull and twist. And the same with that one. Slight wobble in the pot, but that seems fairly firm. Give it a little one more tighten there. At this point my cable's probably going to break. Okay, that's nice and stable in the pot, so now we'll fill in with some soil. As we're putting the tree in, we've done a couple of prune backs of the foliage, but at the same time as the roots. So we'll balance the canopy with the roots. Now that we've cut them back, we've cut another one there, and we took another one off around the back here. So we're trying to bring the tree back in a little bit. It has become a little bit leggy over the years, but we'll do a bit more pruning in the summertime once he's settled in the pot. Okay then, Ed, we'll add a bit of soil in. soil in with the chopstick. Three, two, one. Okay, so we've now chopsticked all round, got rid of hopefully any pockets, and got the soil nicely between the roots. So the next job is just to add some moss, some chopped sphagnum moss over the surface, and any of these fine roots which are running along the surface will stay moist and then grow down into the compost. And after probably 4 to 6 weeks, we will start to thin down the moss, and then we'll remove it totally, but in a gradual way. So when you're taking your moss off, it's best just to thin it before taking it off, because when it's been on here, there'll be a lovely lot of fresh root just on the surface under the moss, so we don't want that then to die off. So when we come to taking our moss off again, we'll do it in a gradual way, thinning it out until it's all gone. Now, if you've got your trees and you're not necessarily able to water them because you're at work or something like that, then it's a good idea during the summer months to actually put a layer of sphagnum moss onto your trees, and it will cut down massively on the evaporative loss of moisture from the surface, and it will mean that your trees will go longer between watering. Now, once we've finished mossing the tree, we'll be labelling it up to tell us when we did the repot, and if we were to have done a very severe root prune, we could add those notes to the label so that we know in terms of aftercare how much aftercare and how precise the aftercare needs to be. So with a very aggressive repot, we make sure that we gave it lots of shelter, probably a little bit of shade, and we'd be very careful on the watering. This one we've not taken too much root off, so it shouldn't need intensive care, but we will need to keep it out of any strong winds, and if we've got frosts which are forecast for next week, we may well have to bring the tree in on the odd frosty night. Okay, so as the buds are just coming out, it's a classic time for them to get hit by the frost, so we'll be looking out for frosts. Okay. Now, once you've put your moss on, you can then use a piece of mesh just to stop blackbirds and other birds throwing the moss off. We find generally if we chop it really short, they don't tend to nick it, but if you do have a lot of birds, it's worth putting some mesh on so that the moss doesn't get taken off by the birds. Okay, so we're now ready to give it a water. water that in. Okay, so that completes the repot, and it's now ready to go back on its stand.